Where's this at? Oh, there it is. So much Windows. Good
Morning,
morning.
Chad. How you doing?
Good. How's it going? Let's see. Pull that there. How was your weekend?
Good,
First
man.
off, yeah,
Really good. We're really excited. Things went really well this weekend and super powerful.
nice.
Yeah. We actually had extra people this week, so we were able to like invite more volunteers. So we had
Oh,
like
nice.
two more people on the worship side, and I had three people come for production. So that was really cool to have two extra camera people and someone run CG for us. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Kind of alleviate the load, man.
Yeah, totally, totally. Awesome. Let's see.
How was everything with your weekend?
I was good. They still wanted we had about 100 people there, but they asked us at the last minute to not show any crowd or even put the crowd mics up. We were laughing. We
Oh,
were like, man, we could have kept our LED cube thing.
oh wow, yeah,
uh,
true.
I think they were just more worried about perception for some of um, the protesters. Sometimes, every once in a while, we'll get protesters outside of our church.
Wow, dude,
So they just want to do, I
when you're
guess
doing
this
something
week, keep
right,
it.
when you're doing
Yeah,
something right, right? Enemy wants to come and
it's the funniest thing. I don't think I've ever been part of a church staff that has seen the amount of. I mean, we'll get people coming up and spray painting on our road up to the church cult, things. Or there's a Facebook group out there that their whole group exists to just tear down Bill and Chris every
that's
time they speak. They used to, I don't even know if they do, they used to send people to the church to listen to the sermon and then write down everything that was unbiblical about it and then post it on there and then email it to Chris and Bill. It's
that's
crazy.
yeah, man,
It's like, what do you have? How much time do you have on your hands to even
exactly. Bro.
even do that?
What don't you have anything else to do with your life,
I know, right? Uh,
bro?
um, cool, man. Hey, talk me through the book, the chapter. Did you
Yeah,
what spoke out to you out of that first chapter? He definitely dives deep. That first chapter is like boom right in your face. So
yeah, man, it really is. Yeah, I think I mean it spoke a lot with just the sense and the feeling that I got was just that like all of your like so in the book he is very much like driven, and he's like, all right, I'm focused on this, and this is what I have to do as a Christian. I have to
right,
preach, I have to be legalist, I have to be correct, and all this stuff. And and you can then like things can go on by the wayside as far as what really it matters, because you've heard it said, and I've heard it said a bunch of times, your family is your ministry first, you know and this dude like knew that, I guess, but it was like, but yeah, but they're fine, I need to do this. And anyway, in like my life, I definitely have seen people like that, and I'm thankful that I've kind of learned by other people's stuff
right, yeah,
of like, hey man, this is really I'm a big evangelist. Like I like, you know talking to people, and then bringing up the fact that like, hey man, do you know Christ? Like, do you know what it means to
nice,
be a Christian? All that kind of stuff. Like I'm very like in on that side of things. Like I like that. I'm not afraid of bringing spiritual things up with people that aren't spiritual and stuff,
Mhm.
or saved. And so I can see how that can be like when you're passionate about one thing, how that drives you, but then you forget like, hey man, like, but are you giving that much attention to your family, to your
Right.
kids, to your friends? And so I really kind of what's it called? I sympathize, or what do you like? What I felt was like kind of like what I've gone through was that like when I went through discipleship and like evangelism, discipleship and training and stuff like that. got really, really passionate about it, but then it became very like, it was everything I ever talked about. And then my friends would be like, yo, you need to chill out, man. Like, I know you're like this and you're passionate about it, but like, we're trying to grill and like hang out, and you're talking about, how, where your next, evangelism trip is going to be to and stuff like that. like,
Gotcha. Yeah,
chill.
yeah.
Right? And so I was like, yeah, man, I know what that feels like when you're striving for that kind of stuff and things fall by the wayside. Luckily, I mean, I've never had the experience that he had, like as far as how he saw his wife, he wasn't caring for his wife, or his children saw him a certain way, or that he didn't reflect the, true father's love to his kids and stuff like that. And I'm grateful that it hasn't gone that far. I've never been like that, but definitely I can I can kind of get some wisdom from that first chapter of how to even like steward um, my team as production director, right? Like, hey, you guys, like from the top down, we'll get like, hey, these shots weren't as good. Audio wasn't, the best this weekend. What happened there? And there's always this kind of like, hey, let's get better. Let's tighten these things up and get better. And then it turns into task. Hey, get better. Hey,
Hmm.
try to make less mistakes this week. And it really does escalate to like a point where people start going like, we're not having fun anymore,
Right.
or we need to worship together as a team and stuff like that. So I can really see how it applies to kind of like remember, like, hey man, like even when we're trying to do excellence, and it's like what you said, our first um, orientation, where religion is perfection is
Perfection
religion,
is religion.
and excellence is kingdom. Like that like really hit hard, and I'm like, I've been saying that to my team, the team that have been around us because of quarantine, um,
Right.
that even though we're trying to be, we strive to be like really good at what we're doing and capture everything really well, do things really well, so our congregation ultimately receives like a really good quality video
Right.
content, because we want to show them that we care. It's all because we love our church, and we're like, we want to just do good and do excellence for you guys, for the kingdom. But a lot of times it can turn into, if we're not careful, into do better, instead of like,
Yep.
hey, mistakes happen, but let's worship within those mistakes, and let's just strive for excellence, not for perfection. So I really enjoyed the first
Awesome.
chapter, and I was like, man, like, my dad, as a dad, being a pastor and stuff like that, there were moments where he would tend to go towards that direction, but then somebody would always pull him back and be like, hey, like, you need to do this with your family, instead of like worrying about, because my dad would give his shirt off his back to somebody who came to church for the first time and needed it. And
Right.
so,
Yeah.
but how many times would he do that with us? Like, obviously he did. He was a generous dad, but like there were
Yeah.
times where it's like, hey man, like, what
Totally.
about us? Yeah. So I
Totally.
totally vibed with that first chapter. I was like, this is going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Um, Honestly, you got that's exactly what I teach my team. Um, Everything you said, basically, which is great because I don't have to go over it right now because it's early.
I know. Oh yeah, dude, it's so early for you right now.
uh, but yeah, that whole thing about one of the things that I definitely we talk through as a team is yes, we want it to do we do everything with excellence. We want it to look good. We want it to sound good, but at the same time, um, we're not going to strive for perfection because we we know that number one, we're human, yeah, and two, it's a live environment. Mistake happens, and if it happens, it happens. We learn from it and we move forward. And even times now where I'll take a camera and um, either they're not ready, they're not paying attention, and they're not ready,
Yeah.
and they take a funny shot, or it just doesn't match up, or they're like with the camera, and I just cut away from it and we just laugh it off. It's not like it's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, are people still getting saved? Are people still getting set free, worshiping? And
Yeah.
all three is yes at the end of the day, because really it's not about us, right? It's about him and his presence, and God shows up and does what he does.
Sure.
um
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and I grew up the same way too. I'm a pastor's kid, and my dad, he was a great dad, and definitely there were moments that things like that happened, and he pulled back as well. It's just really funny, pretty similar, and he would actually I mean, it was great. I had a great childhood growing up with him and stuff. But
Yeah.
reading this book, I realized like, oh, there were actually still some things that happened through my experience where, you know, we all see God through our experiences, our past experiences, and our current experience, right? So we see God through that lens. So there were certain points, you know, in the book that he touches. Later on, you'll get into it, and it's like, oh man, actually, you know, my dad was a great guy, but this was kind of like he kind of failed in this one, but it's
Mm.
also at the same time, it's like realizing like, wow, he failed. Like for me, it was like my dad failed at this in this area because of the fact that he was, you know, he was trying, he was busy. It wasn't like he wasn't trying. So
Yeah.
for me, it was like it was still a healing process and things. And I can't. My father passed away. Gosh, what, in 2008. So I can't really like sit down like, hey, dad, why didn't this happen? You know, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it really helps to really process and heal and certain things. So it's a good book. I'm glad that you're getting out of it. It's funny because I wasn't gonna take this. I wasn't gonna send this book to anybody. I was just gonna we're gonna focus on a little bit of the heart stuff and talk more tech stuff. And at the last minute, I really felt like I was like, man, God's like, you should do this book with them. I'm like, okay, but I was like, okay, I don't know what it's gonna look like, you know, and especially because most of uh, all of you guys all have, you know, a different take as to the way you do church, the way you do, you know, everybody has their own stream, right, their own style.
Yeah.
um but it's funny to since Monday, everybody has had the same exact experience reading the book and has pretty much the same exact um they they took out of that first chapter the same exact thing,
Wow.
which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's
one of
cool.
them, they're like, we're actually gonna get this book for our entire staff. So it's awesome. Like, yeah, that's cool. You know, it's great. Yeah, and then so and um, moving into um, just some final thoughts in that. I wanted to just hit on uh, like the main thing for me that I tell my team. It's like a lot of times we think that we have to do in order to, you know, either win God's approval or, you know, for God's more of God's blessings or love. And it's like, now God's already impressed with us. He already loves us. And he's not going to love us any more than he already does. You
Yeah.
know, if we do something good or even if we mess up, he's not going to love us any less.
Yep.
Um, and so it's one of those things. It's that we like to talk about here, where it's a lot of times, you know, and I think I might have said it too. It's like God first, you know, family, church, and sometimes it gets skewed. And you're like, well, yeah, if I'm going to put God first, that means I got to be working. You know, I'm going
Mm.
to do the ministry. But at what we often forget is that God delights in everything we do. So if I'm spending time with my family, that means that I'm putting God first. You
Yeah.
know, if I'm spending time with my son and things like that, I'm actively putting God first. So even if my job and church gets pushed aside while I be with my family, that's actually delighting in God and him delighting in me.
That's awesome. Yeah,
uh
for sure.
cool. Awesome. Yeah, let's get into the footage. Hold on.
Nice, man. Did you was that okay that just the multi-view my multi-view has basically program audio? For some reason we got the com to go into that recording, but it was only my com, and I kind of
Okay.
wanted everybody's com to be able to come through there. So we'll
Yeah,
work
yeah.
on that. We'll work on that this week with my audio guy and see if we can get everybody's comms coming through there to record this week. Um,
Yeah, no problem.
but
No, it
then
was
that
good.
means
It's
I'll probably send you two videos, a multi-view and then one with program with just the audio.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's good. That's perfect. We'll mainly focus on the program feed you sent over. Let me just get this all up in. Come on. There we go.
And then I sent you pictures of everything too. And I think the
Yeah,
first batch
that
of
was
pictures
good.
I sent, I didn't label anything. The second batch I did. I was like, oh man, I sent a
No,
bunch
no,
of.
they're perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah, yeah. As long as they got to see, and he already took me on a tour anyway, so it was more just like I, basically I wanted those photos and videos of it just to make sure that like say we're going through this in a few weeks from now. I'm like, hey, what would it look like if you put this camera at a 45-degree angle, stage right, and you're not because I don't know what your sanctuary would look like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I suggest that, and you're like, I'd have to take chairs out, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
our
Yeah, yeah, for
chairs are
sure.
bolted into the ground like these. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm not like, doing that.
Cool.
Okay, let's do this. So let's see, that's 5:30 program. Oh yeah, that was the only program I got too, by the way. Um, the 30th.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Oh, there we go.
So we can just do the multi-view on this one. That's fine.
Yeah, this is last week. Yeah,
All
or
right.
this past weekend.
Yeah. Bring that down. So the way I'm gonna do this, the way I approach these things is I'm gonna approach it as if you are a part of my staff.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna if I'm training a new director, all of my suggestions are gonna be based on if you guys were, if you're working for me and I'm trying to adapt you to our style. That being said, it's all subjective. You can take what you want to take and not take what you don't want to take. Basically, to really match what style you guys are going for, and also, I know there's always leadership involved in things, so to match what they want. Not I'm not looking for you guys to come out of this being duplicates of Bethel. I'd be honored if you guys, decide like, yeah, we want that Bethel look. That's totally cool. But at the same time, I do know that you guys have different styles and different leadership that that you guys have to adhere to. So
Sure.
moving forward with all of this stuff, it's all coming from a spot. I found it easiest just to like, hey, this is how I would do it. This is the Bethel look, and
Yeah,
then
for sure.
from there you guys can take it and deduce what you guys
Cool, cool.
want
Yeah,
to
no,
do.
that sounds really good. Um, on this weekend, this past, you'll notice. I don't know if you'll notice or not, but like I was able to change all of it to 24 frames, and the multi-view and the program view that I had. Those, remember those monitors I was telling you about that were like would only receive 60 frames. I used a what's it called, a decimator to change it
Decimators.
around it. Yeah, so I could see
Nice.
everything, so those would work. But you're right.
Nice.
If it was a TV monitor, wouldn't need that conversion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, everything is
The
24 this week.
I did find out also that I don't know if your that those XD cams that Sony XD cam does it output 24, not 2398, but 24,
Yeah, 24.
24.
Yeah. So I changed the
Because
all the Black Magic stuff to 24 also.
24. Yeah, yeah. And then the ATEM can read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody else did that too. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I was like, man, how do we get the Sonys to? Because we have a couple of Sony A7 threes that like a couple of my guys personally own. I own one.
Yeah.
That's what I'm shooting on right now. But the every time they bring it in to like, yeah, I want to try it, and then we're like, we just can't get it to work. And then
Yeah.
when I think it was yesterday on a call yesterday, and they're like, yeah, I just switched everything to actually 24, not 23.9. I'm like,
Yep.
so
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I can run the Sony's at 24 and I can run the Black Magics at 23.9, and it'll still come through the ATEM,
huh, interesting.
which is weird. So I don't know what our stuff is doing to let that happen, but I just switched it all to 24 just so that there wasn't any discrepancies.
Gotcha. Nice. Now I'm gonna have to. I might have to do that this weekend. And tell one of my camera ops, hey, bring your A7 III in.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
Go ahead and click on that. We would love to pray for you. Church, we love you so much. We miss you so much. We are praying for you, and we are expectant of the testimonies that are going to come out of this time. You guys
Looks good.
Cool.
Just let it play out, mate.
Yeah, if you notice camera 7, that Ursa, those blacks don't look exactly the same as the other, like camera 6 and camera 5.
Right. Is camera 6 and 5 Ursa's as well, or just?
Those are the those are the Black Magic Micro Studios. Oh, actually, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
actually, no, 6 is. Sorry, I meant to say. Well, yeah, 5 and 6 are Black Magic Micro and the Ursa. 7 is the Ursa Mini. The 5 is the Micro Studio. Micro Studio. Everything else, 2, 3, 2 and 3 are Sony's, and number 6 is a Sony.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, but I think I've gotten it to look better before. Right now, it doesn't look as, the blacks look a little like washed out.
Right.
I've gotten it to look a little bit better. So I wonder if it's the ISO or something.
Good to be back with you again. The Bible says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with thanks. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to enter his presence with thanksgiving.
So that's that Sony,
and
and
praise.
I was telling my operator, I don't know why she couldn't do it quickly enough, but her iris was way too like open.
So I'll take you through some things, just like my personal opinion, or thoughts on between old school broadcast and the style that we do. For us, I'm not a fan of the old school broadcasters. So like the push pulls, the crossfading during songs. I don't ever crossfade. I always cut. The push pulls, it is very, even though I don't like it, I still do use it once in a while because it still can convey emotion, and it still can come across very emotional, or giving that cinematic feel still. So I'll still use it. I won't use it all the time. It'll be every once in a great while. But when we use it, we're doing it to the tempo of the song and the dynamics of the song. So like that first shot, like it would have been fine if it was just a little bit slower pulling out, let's go.
Oh God,
like to do is I'll cut to, for us, because we don't do like a hey, welcome to Bethel kind of deal from the worship team. It's always before with one of the pastors. We always start with keys or guitar. That's usually how all of our songs start anyway. So I always either have something on keys. So in this case, what I would do is open it up with whoever's opening up the service, and then cut to either like what you did, you cut to guitar or keys, or whatever is your the instrument that you hear at the time. Excuse me. And then what I like to do is, I don't know if I asked you if you were a musician or not. Did I ask you if you were?
Yeah, so I've played drums and guitar.
That's right.
Yes. Haven't played forever, but yeah.
Yeah. So because I'm a drummer as well, the thing that I like to do is I do a flam, basically. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. So I'm taking right before whoever's going to sing the song to start it, I am taking that like right before they open their mouth. So I'm doing like a small little flam into that, like in my head. I'm like, okay, half beat, and then the main beat of when they're going to start. So that way it gets this opening, like an establishing shot of them opening their mouth, of them like, hey, okay, now we're singing. Like this is the start of the song. So that's what I usually do. I cut to that right when right before they start to sing, basically.
So like so you'd go like drums, like drums, and then it's like, bam, right there to to
Yeah.
like the person's face.
Hmm.
Nice.
Just as soon as, yeah, and it's because it's not the easiest way to explain is flam, but like it's not necessarily that. Like it's sometimes it just depends on like when, like I'm always paying attention to their mouth, and if they're, if I don't, especially if I don't, usually we have program audio, uh, MD, and tracks in our ears, and the tracks, when they go like verse 2 3 4, so if there's
Yeah.
tracks, then I know when it's going to go. If
Yep.
not, I'm just paying attention to their mouth, and right before I feel like they're going to open their mouth and sing, I'll take that cut, even though it's not necessarily like on time, on beat. I'll just go to that.
For sure. Yeah. No, we have track MD in our ears too for um,
to
comp.
look toward your goodness.
And I'm trying to do less uh fades and use more cuts too. Like I'm trying to get into that habit.
It's a hard habit to break. I used to do it a lot too, and then I had to kind of force myself, just like, because just the way we wanted it to look, where we do quicker cuts. We're cutting faster, not necessarily just for the sake of cutting, but the way I cut is really to show emotion, to show excitement, especially like on faster songs. Like I
Yep.
want to show that excitement. I want people to stay engaged at home. um and so I'll either, um sometimes, even on the slower songs, I'll listen to a few things. I listen to is, I listen to the bass, I listen to drums, and then any small little accents that either the guitar or keys are doing. A lot of times I'll take, even on the slower songs, if there's like a couple of different notes that the bass is playing, like, just for an example, if there it's a slow song and then the bass that hits this like bum 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 bum, I'll take like cut, cut, cut,
Oh,
so
okay.
so that way it kind of still kind of almost like it's slow, and then, oh, and then slow, slow, kind of like
Yeah.
jolts their eyes, basically, like gives them something visually to like cue them to like, oh, and then even on the those slower songs, if once they start to build, I'll start to cut a little bit faster, and
Yeah.
then on the big part of the build I'll cut faster, and then I'll cut to something on the crescendo. I'll cut to either, if they're going to go in and go big, or if they're going to go and just drop out, I'll either cut to something like a house wide, or if it's something where they're going to drop out, then I'll cut back to the worship leader in a tight, to kind of show, or hands. I'll show some examples too of what I'm talking about,
Okay.
before
Yeah.
we.
No, I totally get what you're saying though. Yeah. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. So it just invokes that emotion, and especially on the slower songs. On the faster songs, faster cuts, you're just trying to get that energy, trying to get that excitement through the lens, right?
Yep.
And then once we go over this a couple more seconds here of this, I'll take you through like how we do our movement, and the reasoning behind it.
On who you are. You're the light that consumes the dark. The joy and the strength to lift up my head.
Mainly, it's not necessarily like, hey, I'm gonna cut every measure, every 2 measures. I'm gonna cut here, and then I'm gonna wait, 6 beats and then cut. It's sometimes I'm listening to the snare hits and I'm cutting on the snare hit on the 2 or the 4. I rarely ever cut to the 3. It's always either the 1 2 or 4 beat. Um, and yeah, yep.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
We sing. I enter the gates.
Done right there is actually, like, you guys did it later, or this camera up did it later, is, um wherever they're facing, always, for me, I'm always putting them on the left third or the right third. But if they're facing to your right, put them a little more here so that they can have this. This is actually pretty decent because they have looking room. But
Yeah.
I would have just put them just a little bit more left so that they can get looking room, so they're not staring at the end of the TV. They're actually kind of you given that vibe, that context of they're actually staring out into the room.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then he's centered. Yeah. What you mean?
That's also like an old school broadcasting that I don't technically do is I don't we never have for worship, at least we never have anything centered. If it is centered, they'll start off centered and then slowly pan left or right depending on which direction they're singing to. Mainly because it kind of goes back to a little bit of an old school thing where, back in the day when you're crossfading, you don't want to crossfade a center shot on a center shot because they'd be overlapping each other and look awkward. So you put somebody on the right frame, and then you put the other camera on the left frame, and then you blend that in, right? You mix that together, and then it's like almost seamless. I do the same thing, but just with cutting. So I put them on the left, and the other one I'll put them on the right. And then when you cut, it still shows that like the difference in framing.
Yeah.
And but it gives off that same vibe where you're like, okay, it's something different. Like, okay, cool.
With praise, I'll bring a heart that wants you first, all for your glory.
What I would have done here is, because I already have this shot here, I would have asked Seven to give me something else. Like, hey, give me something else. Give me a guitar or something. Just because it just looks too similar, it gives you less options as a director.
Your glory.
Probably just slow that zoom down just a little bit. Not too bad. Movement's really good. Yeah, it's good.
That was a little quick there. Yeah. So this right here is what happens when my pastor tries to talk to me while I'm switching cameras.
My weapon will be my sound. I will not be silent. My song is my triumph. I enter the gates with nothing but thanks. I want to magnify your worth. I want to bring you more than words. I enter the gates, come reckless with praise. I'll bring a heart that wants you first.
This is like a medium tempo song, right? So even in this, you're wanting to still have people engaged at home. So you're wanting to really cut and kind of like almost like push it, like, hey guys, like wake up, get going, here we go, like we're in this, we're worshiping, this is a celebration, so you want to kind of, two ways we do that is definitely our movement, and the second is the cutting.
Now, one of the things, the question is, how do you, so I don't know if this happens to you or not, but it feels like I'm cutting faster, or like moving between shots faster than I am in real life. Have you ever, like, how do you like switch that? Because going back, we thought Waymaker at the very end, the last song of this set was like awesome, and for us, like we cheered when we went offline. We're like, all right, we're clear. Everybody was like, yeah, like this was awesome. It felt great. And we looked back at it with me and the camera guys, and we're like, they were like, man, you were switching so fast. I was like, I know, let's watch it. And then it didn't seem as fast as it was when we were in the moment. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, it definitely, yeah, you'll always get that where two things will happen is you're gonna think you're switching, you're cutting slow, and it turns out to be fast, or the opposite.
Yeah.
It's just really, so I'll show an example later too. Getting into cutting, since we're on this right now, I'll just go into this now. my philosophy for cutting is, I personally, it's my weapon of warfare, right? This is my worship. So when I'm directing and I'm cutting, I'm really going off of what I'm feeling, as if I was one of the musicians on stage. I'm going off like, okay, oh yeah, I'm gonna hit this, boom, boom,
Yeah.
um, and at the same time, I kind of, for the most part, there's, yes, I'll cut, breathe, cut, breathe. There's always, I always give a second, if especially on the faster songs, where a second, or not a second, but at least two measures sometimes, where I'll just let it let that, basically whatever camera I land on, just keep it on them for a while, kind of
Yeah.
just for visually at home, to kind of let people's eyes rest.
Yeah.
um but for the most part, I'm really just worshiping in the moment. And there are times when, especially like on builds, where it's like, as an example, it would be something like, it would never really be this fast, but just for explaining it, it's like, if the bridge is building, ba 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 ba, right, I'm gonna go cut cut, and then let it breathe. Whether that's letting it breathe with, my camera op doing something, if it's still a fast song, they go into a big moment. My camera ops giving me some movement to kind of separate that, where I don't have to cut, but they're giving me movement, so it still seems fast paced and still seems, gives me that excitement and energy. Or if they drop out, I'm cutting to something that's nice and mellow, hands raised, or, just to let that kind of breathe out, so that I'm not like overflowing the eyes of the people at home to like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so when I'm doing that with the builds, especially, for me, I come at it from, if it's something personally for me, like, this is my breakthrough moment. Like, this build is like something where it's like, boom, you're like, yeah, I'm coming in, I'm plowing through, because I need breakthrough for my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need, I'm going through something, whatever. And then if it's not, if my life's going great, and we come at, even my camera ops, I tell them a lot. It's like, we're coming at it from a standpoint of, hey, I'm coming alongside you to help you plow through and cut through anything that you're going through right now at home. And I'm visually helping you, you know, get that victory, from
Wow.
that kind of a mindset. So, I will be on those the bridges to the builds. It's like bam, 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 bam. Like, I'm plowing through, cut. And then finally, when on those big moments, it's like, okay, now you can rest.
Yeah.
You got your victory, or, you got your breakthrough. So that's why for us, sometimes it can feel, it feels like, man, it feels like a fast cut, but then you go back and it's like, oh, actually, it's not too bad, or there's definitely moments when, and it's funny because, what was it? It was, um, God of Revival. Um, if you watch it on YouTube, that's definitely one of those ones that, like, in the moment it felt good, but then looking out of it after, it's like, whoa, that was like way too much, or way too much movement, way too much. They loved it. Bethel Music loved it, but for me personally, I was like, man, I really wish I would have recut that one, just because it was just a little bit too much over the top for me.
Right on. Okay.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely, there's no like formula, I
Yeah.
guess I could
Because I
say,
think
that you could follow.
I think what I'm understanding is like, as a musician, go with like the music, go with that beat, go with what you're not gonna go wrong with going with how you feel, like dun,
Yes.
dun,
No.
switch, switch.
Yeah. And I mean, think about it too. It's like, they're at home, they're listening to it, and
Yeah.
they can hear the same accents that you hear, the same chord progression. So it's like, when you're taking that, a lot of times it just breathes this excitement, this energy. Um, I say that too much, I think, sometimes.
Well, energy.
Energy. It
No.
just it feels so new age. It's like, just watch that energy, that
Yeah.
aura around. Uh, but
Energy around
yeah, 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 yeah.
dude.
Yeah, so just it helps when you're cutting, as for me at least, as a musician, it helps when I'm cutting as if I was actually on stage playing.
Yeah.
We might as well go into that too. So since we're on the subject, um, so how do we do that? How do we do it when um I don't want to, like I was talking about, I don't want to cut like just cut too fast or too much, where at home it's like, whoa, where am I going, what's, my eyes are all over the place. So we separate that between long takes, and what that looks like is my camera ops, excuse me, burp there,
You're
my
good.
camera ops, um they're always taught four main things. uh the first thing is I always need them to be usable 100% of the time. Now that's more of a saying than an actual like hard set rule. But the reasoning being is, one, we cut so fast that I need to be able to just at any moment take a camera,
Yeah.
just because in the feel of it, in the moment, you know, things, like, oh, guitar actually started doing something awesome, and if my camera ops aren't on that right away, we can miss it. um
Yeah.
so being usable 100% of the time, um again, it's more of a saying than an actual hard rule. When they do their, like, if they need an adjustment or anything, I usually give them about 2 measures max to do the adjustment. The second thing would be active listening. um Basically, we give everybody zones on stage and in the room, and those zones are basically their areas to be creative in whatever their fashion they want to be creative in, given the scope of our actual style.
Yeah.
um so within that, as an example, um active listening, so they're in their zone, and camera 6 is always responsible for keys, guitar on stage right, and background and violin, that's all on stage right. So they'll that's their zone. They're actively listening. So if I got a shot on camera 6 on keys, and all of a sudden violin starts to go, they'll actually rack into violin. They'll or pan tilt up to violin to get that shot. Or say they're at a focal length where it's going to look awkward for them to get the violin.
Yeah.
Camera 1, which is usually on the same side, stage right, camera 1 usually only gets crowd and profile shots of the worship leaders. So camera 1, because they're all listening, camera 1 will hear a violin start to play, and camera 1 knows that I'm on camera 6. So
Mm.
camera 1 will actually cover that zone and turn and grab violin,
Wow.
just so that we can always have something. And then the third thing would be getting 3 shots in one take. What that looks like is either whip panning, even some slow panning, and also rack focusing. So,
Yep.
for, again, camera 6, I'm gonna take camera 6, and I need them to get me 3 shots. So what they might do is go from keys, whip pan to guitar, and then whip over to the worship leaders as a reverse shot of the worship leaders. Or they're
Yeah.
gonna rack from violin to keys, and then back to violin. Um, so always 3 shots in one, and that's how we break up the monotony of heavy cutting all the time. Where I'll take that, and that we can still get the same amount of energy and excitement through the lens, but I'm not cutting, and the camera op is basically doing the work for me.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then the fourth deal would be something that I just forgot. um, let's see. I did active listening. I did the
Be
3 shots
usable.
in one,
We shuffle.
usable. Oh, intentionality, being intentional. So every time that they get a shot, whether it's It's, you know, just your normal shot of just a single instrument singer, whatever, or they're whip panning from keys to guitar, right? They need to land that shot and be completely intentional. I don't want them whipping to the stage and trying to find and fish around for somebody, right? They
Yeah.
have to land their shot all the time. So what that looks like is in their mind, they're picturing the end frame of where they're going to go, and where they're going to land. Within that, you're looking at times when, you know, uh, say you rehearsed it in your head, you're going from keys to violin, and when you do it, when you execute it, and you're expecting the violin to be there, but the violin's not there. You know, it's like, oh, what do you do? So what we do is we try as much as we can to hide it by making it look intentional. So that way, what we'll do is, oh, I go up to violin, violin's not there. Either I'm gonna, if I can do it in a fashion where it looks more intentional, I'm gonna follow violin and find violin and land that shot and lock it in, or I'll just go back to keys. I don't have to
Yeah.
make it look like, oh no, where's the violin now? I'm fishing around for something. Oh, there's the bass. I'll get the bass. So it doesn't look like, like, that, like you don't know what you're doing, for instance,
Yeah.
for lack of a better saying. But so always being intentional, always landing the shot. I want the shots to always be framed up in such a way where I could at any moment hit pause, print that out, and put it up on my wall as a picture.
Wow.
Um, so that's four of our main things that we teach. Movement as far as handhelds go. So our handhelds, they do something that we call the dance. What that looks like is basically they're cradling the camera, either like a football. Some will have a side handle, and they'll hold it up like a rifle and do a dance, and they're constantly moving with the flow of the song, with the dynamics of the song. If there's a build that a lot of times when there's builds, I'm like, all right guys, here, we're picking it up, and they'll start to move a little faster. Sometimes they won't even like sway faster. It'd be more just adding just a little bit of wrist movement in the camera when they're doing it. So what you're looking at there is constant movement, right? um, I never want to take a shot where I'm going from movement to something static. It just breaks up in just from a visual perspective, it really breaks things up, and we're like, yeah, there's this
Mhm.
movement, and there's this excitement, and then you go to a static shot, and it's like, oh, what happened? And then you go back to movement, so it
Yeah.
looks a little awkward. So I'm constantly having everything move, all of our cameras, even our cameras on sticks. And what that looks like for cameras on sticks are, it's a technique we use called cinema verte. So cinema verte is a French documentary style of filming. What that is think for a super exaggerated um, look of what it is. Saving Private Ryan is a good example. Uh, so basically, how we do that on sticks is the op has the head, the tripod head, as loose as they can get it. Whether that be completely loose, or like for me, I like some tension when I'm opping,
Yeah.
and doing this technique. And basically, what it looks like is you have there's two ways to explain it. The first is you're doing a figure eight
Mm-hmm.
with your crosshairs on the camera. So you're constantly doing this small little tiny little figure eight. Keep in mind that, one of the things I tell them all the time is, especially when they're pushed in on the way to their focal length or even like halfway, that those movements at the end of the lens are heavily exaggerated because you're so
Yeah.
zoomed in. So like what you might think would be like, oh, it's okay on your end on screen. If you look up at the program screen, it's gonna look like this, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So always keeping that in mind, because what it can end up looking like is basically a boat sway, and you don't want your worship leaders to be at a boat and like getting people sick for seasick, right?
Wow. Yeah, I
Uh,
was gonna ask you like how you guys, if you guys do cameras on sticks or not. So yeah, that's
mhm.
interesting. Okay, cool.
So always movement. Another good way to explain it is if you take a bubble, a big bubble and a small bubble inside of it, and that bubble inside is connected to like a rubber band. And if you go up and then you slide it out and then come back down and in random patterns, one thing, like the easiest way to explain it is a figure eight, but it's
Yeah.
really not a figure eight. It's like just randomly, going different directions. And it still creates that movement. It still creates that excitement, especially on the faster songs. But we use it for everything. So even wide shots, if I tell our main camera for follow is camera 3, I say, hey, camera 3, give me a full wide, and so they'll pull all the way out. But even in that instance, they won't just leave the camera there; they'll actually still give a little bit of movement.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
that way, everything is moving at all times. Everything's active. Everything's alive.
And you guys are never pushing or pulling at all?
It's very
Or,
rare.
well,
We
yeah.
we do it. It all depends. It depends on the song. For the most part, it's usually doing slower songs just to invoke that emotion. Like if one of the singers singing something spontaneous or a really powerful moment of the bridge of the song or something. I'll take a small shot where they're zooming in or pulling out. But for the most part on that, it's also like they're definitely going to the dynamics of the song, the tempo of the song. So they're matching that pull or that push with the song. So it's not always like it's not because what you want to avoid is like even on the slower moments or medium tempo song is that like car coming to hit me kind of look, like, hey, we're in a car and we're gonna go and we're gonna hit this person, that kind of a visual look. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so that's how we do all of our movements, our camera work. We're constantly moving. There's never, and then there are times when, my camera crew, they're all human. So there's times when they're not like in it, just they're not, they're focused on doing the work, but their heart and things are just like not really there. So
Mm,
for me, what I tend to do is I come at it from a loving father's perspective versus like a authoritarian kind of, like, come on, guys, do your job. What's wrong with you? So I'll often tell them like, guys, I know you're better than this. Like we're all better than this. I know we're tired. I know we've been here since 4 a.m. Some days we have to get in at 4 to prep and stuff. So we've been here at 4 a.m. and it's 6 o'clock in the evening now. I know you're tired, but guys, listen, like this is not about us. This is about, all this speech, right?
yeah, yeah,
The coaching speech. Um, and a lot of times, all that to say that a lot of times it helps give like a little bit more to your image, to your end product, I guess you could say,
yeah.
because now your ops are actually in it, like, okay, yeah, let's do this, like let's go, like um yeah, that's her movement. Let's continue here, just a couple more.
It's all for your glory, Jesus. Come on, let's sing. Sing, my soul will sing. My soul will make this place an altar.
On that, like instead of panning out off of it, I would have just stayed framed up and stayed on that 3 shot of the
Mm,
Will make this place an altar. Make this place an altar. Sing, my soul will sing. My soul will make this place an altar. Make this place an altar. Sing, my soul will sing. My soul will make this place an altar. Make this place an altar. Sing, my soul will sing. My soul will make this place an altar. Make this place an altar. Sing, my soul
But it definitely had more looking room here, had more on this side.
Yeah.
For your glory, I enter the
Oh, I can do it on the preview side. Sorry. Itching. What I would have done is that right there that's where your intentionality comes in. So um it almost looked like they were just like fishing around this whole area to figure out like I don't know where to go, you know. So having telling your ops like always be intentional, like if you're pushing in, like to me like they were pushing in there, just go ahead and keep pushing in and frame him up, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
instead of having her in there, like intentionally lose her, and then that way, you know, it brings that focus to that guitar player.
I wanna magnify your worth. I wanna bring you more than words.
I'd put him on the third more.
Yeah.
With praise, I bring a heart that wants you first, all for your glory. Oh, it's all for your glory, Lord. Oh, we sing for your glory, Jesus. It's all for your glory.
So what I tend to do in between, so this right here is this one's it's just a little bit awkward because you're cutting them off here.
Mm.
So I would have just had them slowly tilt down.
Put down.
Yeah. Um, all my transitions in between songs are usually just wide shots. I just take a house wide. Um, let's go here. Yeah, that's good. Cutting to him right. Yeah. And then here, so here, this is a little awkward because every shot is pretty much the same.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. 1, 2, 3.
So, one thing, do you guys have are you guys running iMag out there?
No, we're not.
No. Are you guys is your iMag usually the same as your stream or your normal program feed?
Well, so we don't do IMAG at all. Even when we're with people
Oh,
in the
okay.
room, we don't do IMAG at all in the room.
Gotcha. Okay. One of the things I was going to say to help is if you have iMag and you have program out there, your camera ops can always like put an eye out to see like, you know, whoever's live, they can see what shot it is, and then they can frame up differently than that shot that's live to give you some options. But even in this, like, you know, because it's in the moment, I would basically say 365 or yeah, 365, give me something else, you know, just so that way, you know, or even keep like this one because this one's a little bit looser, like have 3 and 6, say, hey, 3, 6, give me something else.
Okay. Yeah,
And that
sure.
just opens up your options so you're not like stuck between like, oh, I can only go between 7 and 2, or I can go with these other cameras, but it's going to be a little bit awkward, you know,
Yeah,
because it's going to be almost the same shot.
yeah. Which is what I did. Yeah, you're right. Wow.
So like this, I would have pulled out just a little bit slower. And
Mm.
then even when they're pulling out, like make sure that headroom just comes down with them.
You make giants.
The keys are kind of like the more prevalent thing in there. So I
Mm.
would have definitely cut to keys right at that moment. Like you make my, and then cut to keys. You make bum 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 bum, and then either cut back to this tight of him. Um,
will speak to my fear, and I will preach to my doubt that you were faithful there, and you'll be faithful now. Forever you are faithful, Lord.
Every time, usually for me personally, every time drums comes in, I'll go to drums just because I'm a drummer. I love seeing drums. So.
Yeah.
But
They have so much
I'll always, yeah.
So much movement just from them, you know.
Yeah. So like even this shot is great. I would have done two things that you could have done is one, definitely just a little bit more movement to kind of make, to match the song and match the tempo of the song. The other thing, what would have been nice is keeping either starting here and then pulling focus or just framing her up there from a reverse shot, or the other way around where you're starting on her and then you're pulling focus to the hands or the keys. So that's where you can get you can start to get your like 2-in-1 shots at least, or 3-in-1 shots.
Yeah.
The drums, one of the things we like to do, and I'll show a couple of examples too, is we'll go in just a little bit tighter, and then especially when they're about to do a fill, and when they do the fill, the camera op will actually follow his hands around the fill and follow it to add that movement there.
To earth, and you will fight my enemies. This will end in.
It's a little too long on the drums there.
Yes, I will.
For your jib here, just double check. Like this is fine, but when they start to jib this way, jib left or right, I've noticed that it gets your level gets a little bit skewed, and it almost looks like a Dutch angle. So you want to make sure that it stays level throughout the entire thing. And it's also could be just based on the position of the jib, that when they get to a certain spot, it just looks crooked, even though it's not.
Yeah. Well, I switched out that camera too because that camera wasn't getting in focus well enough. So I switched it out because the lens on that thing was not good. I rebalanced the jib too and all that. So make sure.
And I will speak to my fear, and I will preach to my doubt that you were faithful there, and you'll be faithful.
You see how on camera 2, you see how it's kind of like in a small little diagonal, it's just a little bit off.
Yeah. Wow.
You'll be faithful now. And yes, I know that I know you never will. You made mountains move.
This is a big crescendo moment. And then coming out, I'm going to the jib was good. I just would have gone into it as soon as they hit that cymbal on that big moment, on that crash. As soon as they hit the crash, it's like boom, now big wide,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That last song, Waymaker, was the one I told you where we thought, man, we're moving really fast, but it seemed felt faster than it actually was.
You are the God who makes in the world mountain will be up as well. And Travis 977, you can give Israel. He was a young man, an evil.
Yes, sir.
Able fall.
Yes, I will believe it. You made mountains.
Oh. Is this one called Waymaker as well, or was?
Oh no,
are you talking about
after the sermon?
Oh, it's after the sermon. Okay, I was like, is that a different one?
Sorry.
Sometimes they're all the same. Like they just name them all the same. Okay, there we go.
Yes, that is who you are. That is who.
It's actually perfect But then that's where, remember, the thirds come in, because now you see that
Yeah,
how they're overlaid, especially if you're not
you're not
if you're
gonna
not
cut
cutting and you're actually mixing their
like a
crossfade.
ghost on top of them.
That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are, Jesus. You made a way.
So, well, I guess do it this side. So even in this, well, this is actually a good example too. It's like here, he's not doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like if he had his hands up and worshiping, that's a good thing to get. Here I would have started tight on the guitar and then went up to him.
Yeah.
Just to give you that visual, like that always going back to that, like 2 to 3 shots in one.
Yeah.
And slowing down that push, and then even in that, like I'm noticing like those pushing and pulls, it works, but it's also like almost just too wide. Like I would just have them go tighter and then slowly pull out, but not to like a huge wide, and cut off of them before it gets too wide.
Right. Now the
It's
thing is, I think that's the slowest those Sony cameras push out.
okay.
Which name?
I'm just kidding.
What? What'd you say?
What I said, you just got to stop. No more pushing and pulling. I'm here to challenge you.
Right on. Let's do it.
It is honestly, like the way you let me just scrub through a little bit here. I just want to see something.
Yeah.
Yes, my God, that is who you are.
That was probably a mistake that they thought they were off of, but that pulling out that little pop zoom there is actually nice. I like things like that.
Which we'll go back to that. Which one? Which part?
I worship you, Jesus. That is who you are. That is who you are. Yes. That is who you are. 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 That is who you are, Jesus.
Software isn't the best.
Working. Can never stop. Even stop. You never.
Drums, like that is like it's not only is it on beat, it's actually matching the tempo. The movement's matching the tempo.
Stop. Oh, you.
Well, let me try again. It's worse. I wonder if it's because I'm doing it on my iPad. So
Well,
here,
it's a really long video too, so it's got a lot of dead at the end of it. Dead air at the end of it.
yeah. I would have just given him a little more look at room, so he's looking out into the audience.
Sure. Yeah. You're right.
You never stop working, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that.
the so we found, like, honestly, what you guys are doing, that's what we used to do. Um, those push pulls, things like that. It is a total mindset change, and it is, like I was telling you, like if you do decide to not, like, just go like, hey, no more pushing and pulling, for a while. Let's try to, I did a hard cutoff. Basically, we went like at least 3 months without doing any of that. And then basically you have to retrain your mind, like,
Yeah.
you're looking for that. But the way we got away with, uh the easiest way to retrain our minds was adding that cinema verte, adding that movement in there still, so that way there's still movement. It's not like you're pushing and pulling, because that's what you're pretty much doing when you're pushing and pulling. You're trying to convey that movement, right?
Yeah.
This is, so when you're doing the cinema verte, it kind of replaces that. um and it definitely takes time. The reason why we do 12 weeks is because it takes about 6 weeks for things to shift, to change, for your, habits to break, basically. And then the other 6 weeks is really just fine tuning.
Yeah.
And then again, this is all subjective, right? I'm coming off of, like, this is what we would do at Bethel. If you guys don't use it, that's cool. If you guys do, that's awesome. It's still this. It doesn't change the fact that I still love you guys. I'll be crying in the corner, but I
If you
still
don't
love
put
you guys.
it-
Yeah. Uh so all that, and what you guys did, I mean, you guys are already, like, honestly, it's you guys are already like halfway there, as far as, like, stylistically, if you were to be with like a Bethel style. It's just fine tuning that, stopping the push pulling every once in a while is fine, but, like, for me personally, that's a lot of pushing and pulling. And even
Yeah.
those pans, like those slow pans left and right, just a little bit too much. Like, I would tone that down. The And then, it's still up to you guys, and how, for me, it's like, I basically, I came in and I decided to stop crossfading at all. Like, I don't the only time I crossfade now is going in between, uh a going into, like, going in and out of video announcements or a video. um Sometimes on graphics or a super source I'll do it, but for the most part it's only doing on video.
Cool.
Yeah, we cut all the time. Cool. Any questions?
Uh, no, I think it's pretty straightforward. And I mean, I can always look back at our video too, right? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that was really good. And then just framing people up on that, on the left or right thirds is good too. Yeah, because I think you're right. It's like that old school broadcast, centering things out like that, and for sure, awesome, good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a different way of thinking. It Like I said too, it'll take time. And also, um it's also, if you start to do, say you want to, you definitely want to start to do, like, more of the Bethel vibe and stuff. um you know it's definitely according to your SLT, your senior leadership team. It's like,
Yeah,
if you start to do it, it's like, it's definitely up to, they might come back and go, oh, I don't know about this. you know like,
yeah,
I don't
for
know.
sure. No, I
Right,
think
but
that
it definitely, it took a lot of communication between us and our senior leaders, to constantly, like, fine tune and be like, hey, what about this, how does this feel,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where I think I'm definitely in the position where I can try these new things out.
Yeah,
Trust me enough to be like, all right, let's. What are you doing?
nice.
Whatever, you know what I mean? And so,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and at the same time, it's also like it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission.
that's true. Yes, sometimes, yeah, totally. um
But
real
no,
quick.
I'm
Oh, go
definitely
ahead.
I'm definitely in the position where I can say, hey, we want to try this. I want to refine this thing, and they're
Nice.
down for it.
Yeah, and if they need, I mean, honestly, just show them our stuff as examples, like,
Oh, for
and
sure.
you can even say, like, hey, this is a fully exaggerated version of what we'd go for to start off with. Or if you want to jump into the fire right away and be like, this is what we want to do. you know, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
uh, let me show you some examples real quick of what I was talking about. with all the camera movements.
Cool.
Let me start. This is from 2 Sundays ago. So you see that we're constantly giving that movement, right?
Yeah.
They're constantly doing that dance. I'm staying on keys because that's the prevalent. Then I hear the violin, so somebody got it.
Yep. And you went right before he started singing. He went right to him.
So here's some secrets too. This lens flare right here,
Yep.
that's fishing line.
Oh, fishing line in front of the camera?
Right. Taped to the lens.
Taped.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
So that's fishing line taped to the lens. I think they put it dead center on the lens. And then always keep them on thirds.
Yep.
Fast forward a little bit here. Another fishing line there. Then here, he got it. He's in there subtly. Let me see if I can. So hearing that guitar, so I'm definitely getting that guitar, getting that. On this lens here, to get that like that little
halo
flare there,
yeah,
that's a black pro mist filter. It's a 1/8 black pro mist filter on there. It kind of smooths out skin. Basically, it's like a cinematic filter, so it smooths out the skin. It softens up the light a little bit. I currently on this camera here in front of me, I have a 1/4 black pro mist filter on there, just to make me look pretty.
Nice.
So one thing I like to do is I'll come in on a Sunday and watch them warm up. Oh, there you go. This is another. So this right here,
Yeah,
that is a prism. You can get it on Amazon for like $20, I think. This one's a prism, and then he'll swap sometimes between a prism and a glass guitar slide.
Oh wow.
To get a little bit of that flare in there.
Your camera operators have little props in their pockets they can pull out to put on. Wow.
Yeah. they've even gone as far as using a half-filled water bottle to bring in some flair, just to bring in some stuff to just make it look more cinematic.
Do they take off the fishing line or do they leave it on the whole time?
We leave it on the whole time for worship. Yeah, we'll take it off for the message. Well, actually, we tried it out. One of the cameras that we had like 3 weeks ago, we tried it out for the message. It actually worked out fairly well, just because of where the speaker was placed, where Pastor Bill was placed.
Yeah.
So this is the pedestal. This is our cam on sticks. Oh, not sticks, but it's on a pedestal. So the pedestal has wheels, so he's actually dollying that. But even when he gets to this spot, I didn't go off of him, but he's technically doing a 2-shot in one, right? So he's still moving the head as he's dollying. See how he's moving that head is still fluid, and he goes back for a little bit.
Yeah.
And now we're picking it up, so my cuts are starting to get a little bit faster. Mostly cutting on the progressions.
On that beat.
2 shots in one. Yeah. Whip pan there to get that guitar. And then I hear keys, so we go to keys.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing more and more is that you're a lot tighter.
Yes. For this, yeah, on this set, because of the LED wall and the cube thing, we didn't want to see a lot of people or our camera ops, basically. So we definitely went a little tighter, for the most part. And then what I was talking about doing, using so that I don't have to constantly cut to show that excitement, we're constantly doing stuff like this where I tell them like, hey, I'm actually on this big moment. I'm going to stay on you, and I need you to bring that excitement through. So what I asked him to do was stay. There's a moment on this song where it goes, love's returning, like just him, and then he goes, hey, and then it pops right back into the song like super heavy. And so he whips. I told him, why don't you just whip to drums? And he's like, okay. But he because the drums were directly behind him, so he had to do a full 180 whip.
Oh, geez.
So I like to come in and challenge them at the last minute and say like, hey, let's try this. And so that keeps them on their toes, number one, but also helps with their craft, helps them. So he was practicing it during sound check, and then this is what it turned out to look like.
I said love's returning, love's return. I prophesy love's returning. Let the wind blow.
Nice.
And then definitely super fast cuts now.
Yeah.
Convey that energy, that excitement. So there's that 3-shot in one where on the drums where he went from the drums tight, and then he went up to the drummer, but because it didn't come off of him, he went back down to the drums. So he's still making it look intentional, even though that wasn't his original idea or thought that he would have done. Yeah, so that's just an example of all the putting all those things into practice, what I talked about with you guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. Any questions?
No, man, that was great. That was awesome.
No.
Yeah, this is
Cool. Yeah, just homework again. Keep reading the book, that other chapter. Work on the timing of the cuts. Stop crossfading. Stop push pulling zooms. Movement. Make sure you got movement in there. Work on the cinema verte. And it's like also too, it's like I don't expect it to be like next Sunday. I want it to be like that. You know what I mean? It definitely like my, I guess I could say, beta program was a church called SOCO Church, SOCO Church. So if you go on Facebook and you look at what they were doing in January, and then you come out to by March is when they finally started really implementing things and their style. Their March services are their, like, that was when we finally like, okay, you guys got it now. Like,
wow.
They wanted to go full in on that. They still had their own style, obviously, but they implemented a lot of the stuff that I taught them. So
that's cool.
You can take a look at that to see kind of like how the progression looked for them.
Yeah.
Just to get a kind of like a broader idea of what I'm kind of take you guys through. So
yeah.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Thanks,
cool.
Chad.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will see you next week, my friend. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, man. I know you had an early day today, and then I don't know what time you're going to be able to stop, but
6 p.m.
Right on. I'll be praying for you, man.
All good. Thanks, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right.